हर घर में चिता जलती थी, लहराते थे शोले, हर शहर में शमशान वहां भी था यहां भी। गीता की कोई सुनता न कुरान की सुनता, हैरान सा ईमान वहां भी था यहां भी।
In 1974, the film Garam Hawa was released and won accolades not only in India but also abroad. It was a small budget film, part funded by the government's Film Finance Corporation. A searing look at how partition broke up many Muslim families, it has left a lasting impact on Indian cinema.
कितने जूते वाले रातों रात पाकिस्तान भाग गए, कितना रुपया डूब गया बैंक का।
जो भागे हैं उनकी सजा उन्हें क्यों दी जाए जो ना भागे हैं और ना भागना चाहते हैं।
Starring stalwarts like Balraj Sahni, Shaukat Azmi, Farooq Shaikh, Jalal, Agha, and Gita Siddharth, it tells the story of the Mirza family of Agra, which is divided on the issue of moving to the newly formed country of Pakistan. The script was written by Shama, Zaidi, and Kaifi Azmi. It is now considered the best ever film on partition. Garam Hawa was the first film made by MS Sathyu and won the National Award. Sathyu received the Padma Shri in 1975. Here he speaks to Sidharth Bhatia about his early career as an art director and how Garam Hawa came to be made. Sathyu Saab, welcome to The Wire and warm wishes for your 90th birthday.
Thank you.
Obviously, a lot of fans out there of your films and your masterpiece, especially Garam Hawa. So we thought it would be a good opportunity to talk to you about your career, about that film, and about what's going on in the country, what was going on then. So I first wanted, before we come to Garam Hawa, I just wanted to, people that are not very, very sure of your career before that, because you were a stalwart in the theatre, you were an assistant director, you were an art director and you won a Filmfare Award. So tell us about your early parts of your career from the 50s.
Well, I started my career in Bombay, although I was studying in Bangalore before that. I left my studies and went to Bombay in 1952 and looking for an opportunity to work in the films. And nearly 4 years I was unable to get any proper job anywhere in any of the film industry outlets. Then waited and did theatre work to an extent. I worked with various theatre people in Bombay, and I had a problem about language because I didn't speak any of the local languages of Bombay, like Marathi or Gujarati, Hindi. I only knew Kannada and English and a bit of Tamil, which is spoken in my home. So it was a bit of a problem at that time, and I didn't know how to utilize my time in the theatre. So I concentrated basically on the technical aspects of theatre. And I started working backstage and doing lighting, makeup, and designing. So that's how I started, and slowly I learned the local languages to speak, and then shifted my activity. And I worked with the Indian People's Theatre for quite a long time and directed plays. So, but I was I was unable to get an opening in the films. But later on, it's just happened that Mr. Chetan Anand came to know about me, and he was making a film called Anjali
Yes.
during the 2500 year of the Buddha. And so it was about Ananda, a disciple of Buddha, on whose life a film was being made, and then he called me over and said that to work as an assistant director. But then I was not knowing what an assistant director's job is. And I said, why don't you just make me a designer? I would rather design the sets and the costumes for a period film like this. But he said no, he had an art director. So he said, don't worry about anything. If you know English, that's good enough. You can read the script. The script will be in English. So he said, you'll work as an assistant. And he himself was acting in the film in the main lead. So for an assistant director, for the first time, I started calling the shots. You know, that is very strange. Very few get an opportunity to do that.
So,
Then,
what was, I wanted to just go back a bit. What was the atmosphere in Indian people's theatre like in the early 50s? We had just achieved independence, and IPTA was quite at its peak in those days, if I recall.
the activity was very less in the IPTA. It was almost, hardly 6 months they would take to do a play and things like that. And very few shows were being done. And so we started reviving the whole thing. Earlier it was very active. The Bombay IPTA was one of the most active theatre groups, but but there was a lack of leadership. There was a lack of activity, and almost nothing is happening really. I mean, for a theatre, the most important thing is to always be in contact with the audience. That's very important, to build an audience and have a regular number of shows and things like that. But that was not happening. But later on, anyway, after the Ghalib's centenary, when we did a play called Shama, so that, revived IPTA in a way. And we opened the play in Delhi at the Red Fort. Diwane-Am was the place chosen to do the play. It was a kind of a mushaira of that period. And it was after nearly 100 years, the whole mushaira was enacted with Ghalib as the central figure. So that brought back activity regularly, and then a lot of shows took place all over the country. And then the other plays started happening.
And it was full of stalwarts, wasn't it? I mean, famous people who became really famous later on.
Yeah, there were a lot of people who were very well known, like K. Abbas and Habib Tanveer was there, and Kaifi Azmi was there, Vishwamitra Adil was there. There were a lot of people who, and Deena Pathak, and So there were a lot of people, but the IPTA as a group had broken down, and some of them had left the IPTA. People like, Utpal Dutt started his own theatre, and Shambhu Mitra started his own Bahurupi. So, and Deena Pathak started her own theatre in Ahmedabad. So like that, there was a lot of split amongst the leaders of that period. But I won't say it was a breakdown of any kind. I thought the same activity multiplied.
Yes.
They started doing under different banners. You see, the thing is, for a theatre person, somewhere or the other, his name becomes important. But IPTA had the slogan called IPTA, they didn't give credit to the individual. They were only an ensemble, and the credit was to the people working for IPTA. So there was no individual recognition, and that's how people started leaving IPTA and going away.
So again, Chetan Saab made Anjali, which I remember reading somewhere was not that much of a commercial hit.
Yeah, you see, Chetan Saab was a kind of a not totally a commercial filmmaker. He had made films like Nicha Nagar before that. And he was a person who knew about the theatre. And he started a kind of a middle path, I should say, neither commercial nor too intellectual. So he had started a new kind of theatre. It was more realistic in approach. Started by Begum Zaidi at that time. So we started working for that. So, and in 1962, when the Chinese aggression took place, we were all very angry. Almost the entire country was angry with China and Chow and Lai. Then, so Chetan Anand came to Delhi, and then he met me. I was working in a newspaper office which was publishing Link and the Patriot, a tabloid, daily. So I was working there, and then he said that he's making a film like this, and would you like to join? I said, yes, certainly. It was a challenge to me as an art director to recreate the atmosphere of Ladakh inside a studio. That was a big challenge, and it ultimately gave me a Filmfare Award. I was an unknown person at that time. Even for art directors, they didn't know who I was, And to me also, it was new. For the first time, I was doing art direction in a film.
I mean, you were talking about the Chinese occupying certain pieces of land and territory. Do you see any parallels today?
Yeah, it's a similar thing. They are claiming whatever the areas they are claiming, they had claimed at that time also. So it's nothing new as such.
But if somebody made a film today, it would be slightly different from Hakikat. It would be very nationalistic and very jingoistic, wouldn't it? The atmosphere in the country has also changed.
Yeah, that we have also experienced. A lot of war films were made in India after Hakikat. During the the first rule of the BJP.
Yes.
A lot of films are made, but then they were, in the name of patriotism, they made anti-Pakistani films, you know. And when you make an anti-Pakistani film, it becomes anti-Indian Muslim,
Correct.
you know, which is a very dangerous area. It is deal with a war is not easy. You have to politically correct, and that I see that, you know, films like Border, Refugee, and Furs and things like that. Such films, they were no doubt made with a lot of effort, and they tried to bring in reality in the war films. But then, but it was a wrong approach. You can't make an anti-Pakistan film because there are more Muslims in India than in Pakistan.
So this actually brings us very well to Garam Hawa. Now, before we get on to the film, I just wanted to know, was it difficult to raise finance and get permissions, and because it's quite a stinging story. It tells us, it reminds the country what we've become, what we were at that time. How was it to try and set up the film?
No, you see, actually, it all happened by an accident. Garam Hawa was not intended to be made at all. I had approached the Indian Finance Corporation, and Karanja Saab read the script, which I wanted to make, but then he said it's a very negative kind of story. So why don't you give something else, some other script? We would like to finance you, but then Shama, my wife, who was writing the script, so she went to Isma Chugtai and started talking about making a film, you know. And she narrated some stories from the days of partition, which had happened in her own home in UP. And that's how, you know, Garam Hawa was thought of. And then by accident it was made. And with a lot of theatre people again.
Yes.
A lot of theatre actors acted in this film. And if I say it is almost like an IPTA film, it won't be, I wouldn't be wrong. You know, it was an IPTA film in a way. So it became a success. Although I had a lot of problem getting the censor certificate. It took nearly 11 months to get a censor certificate.
Why is that?
There was a lot of apprehension, and they were unsure of because, you know, the underdog, the Muslim, it is about them, and it was a delicate matter. And how the nation would react to a thing like that was the question. And it was very doubtful for the censor board to pass a judgment on that. So they were unsure. And so they delayed my certificate. Ultimately, with a lot of influence that I used, I knew Mrs. Gandhi personally, and Gujral Sahab personally, who was the Minister for Information at that time. So when I showed them the film and got through. But a lot of politicians had seen the film by the time it was released. The Congress party saw it, and then the opposition saw it. And there was a lot of apprehension at that time.
Was there any serious objection to it? Did anyone in the...
No, there was no objection as such. They were not sure. They were a bit doubtful about the whole thing.
Did
Because
the Finance Corporation, which is a government agency, ever interfere while making the film, say cut this?
no, not at all. No, they just gave a small loan of 2.5 lakhs to make the film.
That's it.
At that, and no doubt I had to spend much more, nearly 12 to 15 lakhs. I think I spent by borrowing money from my friends at that time, and then that's how the film was made and released all over the world. You know. But we had a lot of problems because of the delay in getting the censorship. All my distributors walked out. The actual premiere of Garam Hawa took place in Paris. The very first public show of the film was in Paris. And then it got selected for the Cannes Festival. It was recommended by a Le Monde critic, Louis Marcorel. He recommended the film to the Cannes people. And it was shown at the Cannes, the main festival itself. And for the and then there the Oscar people had come to see films, and they selected Garam Hawa for the non-English language film for the Oscar. So that by itself became a sort of a history, you know. I mean,
sorry, I have to ask this because this is a very important question for me, and I'm sure people want to know about it. Did Balraj Sahni, was he always in your mind to select him for the role? Because he has best role of his life in this.
Balraj Sahni, I had worked, we were in the theatre. I had worked for his Jew art theatre, and then he was also in the IPTA, and then he acted in my play Shama as Galib. So there was a close association in a way, and I admired his capability, and ideologically also he was one with us. So all these things helped, and so it was automatic for me to think of him as the lead person in the film.
And where did you find a talent like the Ammi?
Who?
The mother, because she was.
The mother was a big problem, actually. Begum Akhtar had agreed to do that role. But then at the last minute, when we were shooting in Agra, I got a message from her that she is unable to come because her husband doesn't want her to act in films. Although Begum Akhtar had started her film career much earlier during the Mehboob's, films she had acted. But then I had to look for somebody in Agra, and then we found this old lady, Badar Begum, her name was, and she looked the part very much, although she was not an actress of any kind. She had only come to Bombay when she was about 16 or 17 years old to become an actress, but she failed. She just couldn't get an opportunity, and she had gone back to Agra, and she had become a prostitute. And then by the time when we went to meet her, she was running a brothel in Agra. But when I asked her if she would do the role, and that I'm shooting in Mr. Mathur's house in the Haveli, would she join the troupe? She started crying. because that was her life's ambition to become an actress, which she had failed, you know, and so that itself is a very touching
It's a
story.
really poignant story. Now, while
Yeah.
making it, many of the actors must have remembered their own lives in 1947, their lives of their families, people's own histories about one person going there, one not going there. It must have touched a lot of people even while making it. I mean, if the impact is so great on the audience.
The Indian films which represented uh, the Muslim life was they were showing a decadent life of nawabs and tawaifs and things like that, dancing girls, you know, but never approached them as part of the Indian masses, you know. That approach, I think, for the first time ever, happened in Garam Hawa. So they
So,
became part of the mainstream, you know, which was not there before. They made a lot of films, you know,
so
except perhaps some examples we can take, like representation of the Muslim in Padosi, for example, in Shantaram's. So there was a little bit of that, but a real effort to show them as part of the Indian population was never there.
So
So
two scenes.
minorities in India, like the Christian minority or the Muslim minority, has not been really shown in a proper manner. You know, so that is unfortunate.
How was the film received by Indian audiences, especially by Hindu groups and by Muslim audiences? Did they have
Yeah,
separate
there was a wrong kind of feeling, especially with Bal Thackeray. You know, when the film was going to release at the Regal Cinema in Bombay, uh, somebody had spoken about the film to Bal Thackeray, and Bal Thackeray wanted to see the film, you know, before it is released. So I said, why should you see it before it is released? Why don't you people come? So Shiv Sena can come to the premiere itself. And the premiere was being inaugurated by Vijay Lakshmi Pandit, the governor at that time she was in Maharashtra. But then he said, no, I want to see the film before that, before the release. So then organized a special screening for him and some of the Sena people. They all saw the film, but I didn't go, nor my partners went there. So we were not there at the screening. He saw the whole film. Then he asked for, so where is the director? Where is the producer of this film? He says, they have not come, sir. So he just sent the print for you to see. So he said, this is exactly what I want. The Indian Muslim should be a part of the mainstream. And that is the message this film is giving. So there was no problem after that. This was only a kind of apprehension at that time which was there. And even L.K. Advani had written wrongly about the film in their newspaper, the party paper. And he said it looks as if this film has been financed by Pakistan. I mean, this is a comment which L.K. Advani had done. But later on, when I met him sometime in Madras at a film festival, he said, I'm very sorry, I made a mistake. I had not seen the film, but I wrote it because I got a report from somebody about the film. So he apologized for having
What
written that.
did what did Muslims say? Did any Muslims tell you?
No, there were some conservative Muslims who said, especially about this love affair, which happens between the cousins. Because in a restricted atmosphere in a Muslim family, these things do happen. I mean, the cousins fall in love with each other because they don't have the liberty to go out and meet people. Then some Muslims said, no, this kind of a thing doesn't happen. But then, anyway, that was just a very personal kind of thing, reaction. So, but generally, even the Muslims population in India, um, they 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 liked the film. They,
Did it play in Pakistan?
yeah, the pirated versions were there. Even today, Pakistan has a lot of pirated copies.
This what happened with the Muslims in Indian society in the 40s, in 45, 46, 47. Do you see around you something similar in India today?
Well, the situation has become communally worse. You see, we always doubt. We had doubts about the loyalty of a Muslim, but today the Hindu fundamentalism has grown. So a lot of communal clashes are there. I mean, this whole secular fabric is being damaged by the present government, the present rulers of this country. So BJP, in spite of having a Muslim governor in one state or a minister in the center, they are only a show. They have a lot of money, they have been bought, and given position. But basically, the BJP is an anti-poor and anti-Muslim group. This is what I feel. Kerala Muslim could not be accepted in Punjab. He had to look for other avenues like the Gulf countries or Saudi Arabia or go to Canada or some such place. So India still remains basically a secular country. And this secular fabric is very strong. It's very well knit, and it cannot be destroyed.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No communal movement that way is possible in this country.
So that's a very good note to end on.
The Indian ethos is that,
To receive instant updates on all videos from The Wire, click the subscribe button and hit the bell icon. Pay to support independent journalism. Click the link in the description and choose the amount you want to pay.